Well, hello there. Hello there. Hello there, you good people.
Such
and
good
welcome.
People.
Today
good people.
is.
They are pretty darn good people, I gotta say.
There are. We need a semaphore. That's what we need. Today is July 8th, 2021, and this is Life on Earth. You know, I always start the show as people are filtering in. I can see our number of viewers watching are coming up. Actually, it still says waiting, but I'm sure that'll change in a moment. I always start off by mentioning that at the start of the show, as Ayn Rand said back when she gave her speech, Philosophy Who Needs It, she said, formally, I call my philosophy objectivism, but informally, I call it a philosophy for living on Earth. That being the case, that's why the show is called Life on Earth, because if that is true, then objectivists and fans of Ayn Rand, it stands to reason, should be the most successful, the most benevolent, the most efficacious, the most gracious, optimistic, happy people on Earth. And you are just that. I want to compliment you on that.
Yes, and you know, I see that your hair looks really especially good today.
You look marvelous.
And that shirt you're wearing really brings out your eyes, and I just love that.
They might not have heard about the two-way camera yet. But Mary Aline and Chris Cathcart, philosopher, the ultimate philosopher, are in the house. Scott is on hand and says he's a sucker for compliments. So I think we're going to be good to go here. I have to praise you like I should. Why on earth would the topic of compliments come up on a show called Life on Earth about living with Ayn Rand's philosophy? Well,
why would that be?
It came up for a few reasons the last time we had this discussion, including a post I'd put on Facebook. This is one of those posts, kind of like my 10 unpopular truths that got me in trouble. So I'm going to read.
One of them did.
Only one of those rare occasions when I got in all sorts of trouble. I'm going to read a bit of this real quick, because I wrote at the time, one thing I've learned, and it's not a specifically objectivist lesson, but I'll defend it as strongly as anything I know, is this: good is good. See, I bristle when a certain kind of objectivist complains about participation trophies.
Well, not anybody here, though, I should say.
No, there's a certain kind of person who whines that people would get an award just for showing up, like parents or managers who withhold praise and compliments unless something really exceptional has been done, because otherwise, well, they're just doing their job. But just doing your job, whether it's working 9 to 5 or keeping a home or treating your friends and family well, maintaining your health and hygiene, keeping your mind focused, your thoughts rational, your choices reasonable, that is virtue. That is the stuff that keeps the world turning. Yes, exceptionally productive, creative men and women deserve the exceptional results they achieve, and they deserve the exceptional rewards they receive. And they provide inspiration and guidance to all of us. But good is good. Good deserves praise, and good warrants pride. Sometimes, oftentimes, good is good enough. You see, Scott gives us a perfect example. He says, I had a boss say, well, if I say nothing, you're doing a good job. As if you've done nothing wrong, well, if you've done nothing wrong, you could still have done nothing. I suppose doing nothing is doing nothing wrong. So,
well, there is, and I'll talk about this a little bit too, and unless you talk about it first.
No, you will share your uniquely Amy insights as you always do.
I will, most certainly. But yeah, all these are very contextual. So, you know, when Robert talks about rules, they're contextual rules, and there are some exceptions to them.
Do I talk about rules? Well, I have Robert's rules. I guess everybody's got their rules. You know, I only ever had 2.
What's this?
You know, Jordan Peterson had 12 rules of life. And recently, Yaron Brook figured out he needed to do Yaron's rules for life. So if you listen to the Yaron Brook show, he's done 4 or 5 of those
So
episodes.
what's your 2?
My 2 rules, well, I have 12 rules for life, but the first 2 are, number 1, think rationally.
Yeah.
Number 2, act accordingly.
Very good.
All the rest of them are like 3, dance, 4, sing, 5, celebrate, 6, romance. The only 2 are think rationally, act accordingly.
Yeah, we used to have a button up or a magnet up on our refrigerator that says, eat rationally.
Yes, man is an integrated entity of mind and body. Eat rationally. That should be on your refrigerator.
That's right.
For those of you who find it challenging to stay away from the sweets and focus on the heartier stuff. Yeah, unfortunately, if you leave that up on your refrigerator for 15, maybe 20 years, after a while you stop reading it. You need to replace it with something a little more compelling. So back when I said good is good, I had people protest. Well, at the time, for example, the film Whiplash had recently come out. Great film, worth seeing.
Yeah.
But of course, it's about a jazz drummer who finds that teacher who pushes him to new levels of excellence. And in a sense, our protagonist transcends those lessons.
Yes. Yes, he does.
But I answered back, well, someone will protest, what about Whiplash? You loved that film. What about there are no 2 words in the English language more harmful than good job? A line from the film.
Oh, right.
There are no 2 words in the English language more harmful than good job.
You know, that's just
sucks. No, well,
it's really stinky for somebody to say that. In a lot of in most contexts, it is.
At the time I wrote, that expression has its context, has its merit. It has inspirational power. But taken literally, it's crap.
Yes.
And everybody knows it. Recognizing that good is good doesn't or shouldn't take anything away from the drive for excellence. You know, we all love a coach who doesn't accept average results and who pushes us to be our very best. And further, there's a type of person, a particular psychology, which responds well to the drill sergeant, who does not praise nor accept anything but maximum effort and exceptional results. So in the right context, this isn't just useful, it's virtually mandatory. But even then, you only seek to excel in what matters most. For those of you who see Whiplash, you know what I'm talking about. Consider our protagonist and his success in the dating realm, or lack of it. You only seek to excel in what matters most. In areas that aren't such priorities, it would be a waste of time to expend those kind of resources in something that's not that important. A world-class athlete isn't going to divert his time and attention and energy and resources into becoming an outstanding chef. Although a world-class philosopher can. You should see Aaron Smith's posts on Facebook. He is becoming a world-class chef as well as world-class philosopher. But barring that, being a decent, competent cook is good enough. Ditto other necessary top, but not tip-top values. Excellence is important, but that doesn't change the fact that good is good.
That ties in a lot with what we were talking about last episode.
Yes.
About ambition.
How ambitious should you be?
Right.
You should be a level of ambitious that integrates within your hierarchy of values.
Yeah, so we have some comments. If you want to go through,
Good. Let's go to the comments.
We have a stingy student says, it's actually quite hard to receive compliments well. I give praise fairly, I guess a lot or somewhat, but being gracious of praise received, especially from people you don't love.
Good, because we're going to talk about that.
Yeah,
and that's something Amy will address, because
Yes.
it's a great question. And I assume by fairly, stingy student means justly,
Yeah.
because that's an important part of this issue. And one of the reasons
Right.
why this isn't optional, You got to get good at this stuff. You'll appreciate that by the time we're done, and you'll be eager to do it. You'll be excited about it. Trust me, we're only 12 minutes into the hour.
Yeah, and Mary Elaine says telling small children "good job" a lot is not good, and that's very contextual as well.
Well, it is. If they've done a good job, then it is important to tell them that.
Well, you can tell them exactly what they did that was good.
But if you
be specific,
if it becomes empty, if it becomes meaningless,
right?
If you're telling them they've done a good job, even if they haven't done a good job, if
right.
You're giving them A's for effort instead of E's for effort.
Well, you know, when you try, okay, we'll probably get this into this a little bit more later, but there is a certain, even as a child, you can pick up on phony people, and you can pick up on even manipulation.
Yes.
So if you're constantly being told, you know, oh, great job, you know, and you've got that participation trophy, and because you tend to think, gosh, you know what, are these people being phony? Because obviously I didn't win. Obviously I came in, you know, 5th place. Obviously, you know, they're trying to make me feel better. And, you know, once you're mature enough to recognize that you're being, you know, you're only being recognized because people don't want you to feel bad, and they want to manipulate your emotions to make you, I don't know, feel good about yourself. It comes across as very pretentious and empty, and that can be even worse than, you know, not saying good job at all. So that's very contextual. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's I'm gonna explain just how contextual this gets, because I'm gonna draw on resources far greater than myself. Stingy Student says, I don't know if this is a good comparison because dogs are obviously less intelligent than children, but when you reward a dog, it has to be after and directly related to what they just did.
Mm-hmm.
Good point, but yes, people are more than dogs, especially once you get out of the realm of children. But it's true. It's absolute, and it's true in the it's true in the adult realm as long as it is done justly and rationally. What gets rewarded gets repeated. That's not just figure of speech.
Right.
What gets rewarded gets repeated.
And I love to talk about some of these comments in here, but I also want to remind everybody that we do have a super chat. So if you'd like to
throw money.
If you would like to go ahead and put up a $1 or $2 or $3 or $4, that would be lovely. All this goes to the Ayn Rand Center UK.
Throw money. I'm changing the name of the album to Throw Money. The oldsters will get that Todd Rundgren reference there.
It reminds me of Give Me Some Money by Spinal Tap.
Very, very, very related.
Very
a related rock and roll reference. No, yeah, but we do have the super chat going on because we're on the Ayn Rand Center UK's channel. In fact,
yes.
I will take a moment to say you should be supporting the Ayn Rand Center UK. In fact, like me, you can become a member by going to aynrandcenter.co.uk. Mm-hmm. I think in a minute they'll put a link into the chat here because you should be there.
Let me see if I can.
Yes, aynrandcenter.co.uk. Click Become a Member. There's 4 different levels of membership. You can become a member at the silver level for £10 a month. You can be a member of this. You can have access to the communications boot camp, the Saturday study groups. Obviously, you can support shows like this, The Daily Objective, all of the things. It's outrageous, the things they do. They've got Yaron Brook doing a weekly debate show. They've got Harry Binswanger presenting HBTV. It's just outrageous. And it's a compliment to me and to Amy to be a part of this. We are honored to be part of the Ayn Rand Center UK roster.
Good group of people. Everybody here has very nice hair and good fashion sense. And that's what I like about them.
See, Amy is coming across with the compliments. Why is she coming across with the compliments? Well, because, to quote somebody we all know and love, justice is the recognition of the fact that you cannot fake the character of men, just as you cannot fake the character of nature. That you must judge all men as conscientiously as you judge inanimate objects, with the same respect for truth, with the same incorruptible vision, by as pure and as rational a process of identification. That every man must be judged for what he is and treated accordingly. That just as you do not pay a higher price for a rusty chunk of scrap than for a piece of shining metal. So you do not value a rotter above a hero. I could go on with this quote from Atlas Shrugged, but I'm going to skip forward a bit, because what has that got to do with telling people about it? What has this got to do with paying compliments? Let's go to, how does one lead a rational life in an irrational society? I think we can agree we live in a somewhat irrational society. And Ayn Rand writes, it is not justice or equal treatment that you grant to men when you abstain equally from praising men's virtues and from condemning men's vices. When your impartial attitude declares in effect that neither the good nor the evil may expect anything from you, whom do you betray? And whom do you encourage? I'm going to read that one again without my overemphasis, because I think that will stand out when I read it a second time. It is not justice or equal treatment that you grant to men when you abstain equally from praising men's virtues and from condemning men's vices. When your impartial attitude declares in effect that neither the good nor the evil may expect anything from you, whom do you betray and whom do you encourage? And if you look for it, it's all over Ayn Rand's writing, this emphasis not on just fighting evil, as important as that may be, but on encouraging virtue, on celebrating virtue, on praising virtue. And that is why praise is crucial. Do you think I picked that one out? Do you think I cherry-picked that? I go to the sources. I go to this book here called The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand. It's funny because Howard Roark doesn't need compliments. He appreciates compliments from many respects, like Mike Donegan, for example. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't need them, and he doesn't even always recognize when other people need them. I think of when he goes to find Steve Mallory, the sculptor that he wants for a project. Mm-hmm. And Mallory has become jaded. He's convinced that nobody will recognize his greatness. People got him doing assembly line work on cutesy little plaques when he is the world's most capable sculptor. And he's given up on anybody recognizing his greatness. So when Roark seeks him out, finally goes to his derelict flat to get him to come do this job, he says, listen, Mr. Roark, I won't be mad at you. I just want to know. All right, I see you're set on having me work for you, and you know you can get me for anything you say. You don't have to go with any $1 million contract. Look at this room. You know you've got me, so why shouldn't you tell the truth? It won't make any difference to you, and it's very important to me. And Roark answers him, well, what's very important to you? Not to. Look, I didn't think anyone ever want me again, but you do. All right, I'll go through it again. Only I don't want to think again that I'm working for somebody who likes my work. That I couldn't go through anymore. I'll feel better if you tell me. I'll feel calmer. Now, why should you put on an act for me? I'm nothing. I won't think any less of you if that's what you're afraid of. Don't you see? It's much more decent to tell me the truth. Then it will be simple and honest. I'll respect you more. Really, I will. Roark says, what's the matter with you, kid? What have they done to you? Why do you want to say things like that? If you know the scene, you know where it goes from there. I don't think I can finish it without getting choked up.
Yeah.
This is a man who has not gotten the recognition he deserves, has not found the success that he's earned. And it takes a lot to get through to him, to tell him, yes, you deserve that. If that's not enough for you, just think of the opening of part 4. Everybody knows, I don't have to read it, the boy on the bicycle scene.
Right.
But I will pull out the big guns. One more.
Oh.
Atlas Shrugged.
It's the heavier book.
If that didn't get you, Dagny Taggart. Dagny Taggart meets once again people she thought she would never see. I'll try not to give any spoilers. But the philosopher Hugh Axton is talking. Well, that's one clue to the nature of our secret. Let's see if I can do this without giving away the secret. Spoiler alert for Atlas Shrugged. Ask yourself whether the dream of heaven and greatness should be left waiting for us in our graves, or whether it should be ours here and now on this earth. I know, she whispered. And if you met those great men in heaven, asked Ken Daniger, what would you want to say to them? Just hello, I guess. No, that's not all, said Daniger. Well, there's something you'd want to hear from them. I didn't know it either, till I saw him for the first time. And he said to me, and then I knew what it was that I had missed all my life, Miss Taggart, you'd want them to look at you and say, well done. She dropped her head and nodded silently, head down, not to let him see the sudden spurt of tears to her eyes. All right then, well done, Dagny. Well done, too well. And now it's time for you to rest from that burden which none of us should ever have had to carry. Shut up, said Midas Mulligan, looking at her bowed head with anxious concern. But she raised her head, smiling. Thank you, she said to Daniger. And there's more like that if you look for it in Ayn Rand's writing. Ayn Rand understands justice. Ayn Rand understands why praise is justice.
Yes.
It's too common, the kind of thing that Scott talks about, where people say, I don't need to praise this person. They're only doing what they should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing more important. There is nothing more inspirational. There is nothing greater in life than doing what you should be doing. Good is good.
I think some of the context here is, as Mary Elaine pointed out, basically that you shouldn't be over complimentary to like a child, for instance.
Yes.
And the context here, I think, is that you don't want to teach children or adults that the source of that person's own efficaciousness is should be coming from another person. It shouldn't be secondhanded. In other words, it should be coming from your own internal locus and your own sense of self and your own introspection and saying, I am good. I did that very well.
Yes.
I'm going to keep it up. And
yes.
So in other words, it's like the problem of school. Do you learn in school to get that A+ from and praise from the teacher, or do you learn in school so that you can actually take those ideas and use them to earn a living, to better your life, to be creative with your thinking, to create new things, to invent, to change the world for yourself, for your own your own selfishness.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that's the biggest distinction. Is it first-handed or second-handed in terms of teaching people how to accept praise?
Yes. Well, you're right. Praise should never be empty, and it should be attached to actual acts.
Yes.
And yes, you do want people to learn to be self-driven, self-inspired. But you also need to see that other people out there are fighting the same fight you're fighting, living in the same world you're living in.
Yes.
Expressing and having the same virtues, exercising the same virtues that you do.
Yes.
Otherwise, I'm just going to keep quoting Ayn Rand. I want to see real, living in the hours of my own days, that glory I create as an illusion. You'll recognize this from the play Ideal. I want it real. I want to know that there is someone somewhere who wants it too. Or else, what is the use of seeing it and working and burning oneself for an impossible vision? A spirit too needs fuel. It can run dry.
Yes.
Unquote. I'm not saying you go out there and give effusive comments to no end and for no reason and ungrounded. This is part of, we talked about benevolence. It's part of justice. You're right. There are ways to do this wrong. There are ways to use compliments that do more harm than good. And I'm glad that we can be reminded of that, but I don't see as much of that. I see it in some of the cultural things we're fighting, the so-called participation trophies, although I believe in participation awards, as long as they are just awards and nothing like the trophies that we give to the winners. Because showing up matters. I don't know if I can express that strongly enough. Showing up matters. Production matters. Creation matters. Virtue matters. And if me putting this quite that strongly can make an impression in the little way that I think it needs to be made, then that's good. Performance means production, and production means creation. And that means getting it done. That means keeping the wheels of the world turning. Some people do this on a scale. The great creators, the great producers, the atlases do this on a level that eases the burden of all the rest of us and makes so much possible. There is nothing that reduces the recognition that we should give them to say that good people are good people.
Yes. Yeah, it goes back to it reminds me of this story from the Leonard Peikoff show, when Leonard Peikoff did his radio show that was syndicated and quite successful, as a matter of fact, with his golden-throated voice. And he talked about virtue, and he had regular people call in, and he talked about Ayn Rand's ideas of virtue, and especially productiveness and honesty and integrity and everything. And he had just regular folks call in, and he talked to them, and they described what they did for a living, how their life is going. And he had one guy come in, I think it was some sort of blue collar worker, maybe a truck driver, whoever, something like that, or a factory worker. And Leonard Peikoff praised him on air. And he said, you show up every day for work, you earn your own living, you provide for yourself and your loved ones. And to that extent, you need to, you should be praised, and you should consider yourself as virtuous.
Yes, very much so.
So I don't know I don't know how accessible those recordings are at this point, but it's great.
It is. It is. I know the estate has said that they're going to make sure that anything that isn't available yet, including some of those radio shows, will be made publicly available. If it's not out there already, it is coming. I'm going to go back to some of the super chats because there's quite a few of them.
Yes.
And I have to say, muchas
gracias.
Gracious. You guys are the best. You really are
Wonderful.
The best. You are the best audience in all of podcastdom.
You guys are basically contributing money to a really nice organization.
Yes.
And in that way, you are supporting our values and your own values, and you should definitely be applauded for that. So.
Yeah, well, Amy's right. I don't mean to say you're supporting the Ayn Rand Center UK in such a detached way, because we're on the roster, so you're supporting us too. Thank you. Yes. Jeff Bannister says, so the compliments to a chef's work of art is fleeting because we all know it is a pile of
it goes away.
stuff.
It's eaten.
Asterisks and things. In the end, the value is the aesthetic, visual, and experience of pleasure that we compliment. The chef's work of art is fleeting. That's an interesting observation, because this moment, where are we at here? 5:29 p.m. Eastern, 22:29 UK time, 2:29 Pacific time. This moment, these next few seconds, are an end in themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing crap about the fact that certain things are fleeting.
Mm-hmm.
If your life is an end in itself. So Jeff, that's an interesting observation, but I'm gonna have to think about that one. But thank you for the very generous contribution.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm interpreting it as, even then, there are certain values that are intangible even. There are values that are spiritual and psychological.
And I think Jeff gets that. He writes, in the end, the value is the aesthetic, visual, and experience of pleasure, which we compliment. Well, that's true.
That's
You have to
very
think about
true.
that one some more. Steve Henderson points out, how about great job or awesome job? Yes, yes. Keep your compliments grounded. Make them real. Stingy Student writes, one thing that is also unique about humans, see, we were going to get to this, is that you can reward yourself. In fact, you must reward yourself.
Yes.
If you're not paying compliments to that guy in the mirror who's watching you brush your teeth in the morning, you're missing out on a great opportunity. He goes on, or she goes on, I can't tell from the picture. If you do something good, reward yourself so that you may enjoy that you do good. Love it. Love it. Reminds me of Harry Binswanger deciding February 2nd is Rand's Day.
That's right.
The day to buy something for yourself. That was also Ayn Rand's birthday. That's why the date was chosen. Mary Aline says dark chocolate is a good reward.
This
Undeniable.
is very true.
That's
Undeniable.
absolutely true. I don't think anybody would deny that. Atlas Spoke says, quoting Ayn Rand from Atlas Shrugged, whatever you choose to consider, be it an object, an attribute, or an action, the law of identity, and he adds, and of compliments, remains the same.
Yes.
Very good. Yeah, my law of compliments is make sure they are just, make sure they are real. Don't make them overly effusive. Don't make them fake. And don't use them so much that, as Mary Aline suggests, they end up becoming a replacement for somebody's own internal judgment.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, as everything in life, you need to be reality-based. So whatever you're, so of course, when I say to you, I'm sure everybody out there is looking great today, but I can only imagine that you do because I can't quite see you.
Well, when we talk about how you look marvelous, obviously we know we can't see you.
Yes.
We're obviously saying something a little different than that. Hopefully that comes across.
But I must say genuinely that I love the questions and the comments here and the level of intelligence that you all portray here in this chat.
Yes.
And knowing some of you in person, as a matter of fact, I know how amazing you are, how wonderful and creative you are.
Yeah. There's more in the chat than I can keep up with, but besides the super chat, there's some great stuff in here. Kelsey Rose talks about how, as a swim coach, I may have been more complimentary than most. I think the sparing compliments might be more important for a parent. And then Mary Aline gives more examples from the Montessori system and how it is a self-motivating system. That's self-directed as well. Yeah, outstanding.
Yeah.
Matt Bateman has a lot to say about self-motivating in education. He and Gina gave a wonderfully adorable daughter. I know that Matt and Gina were just on Yarenberg's show. I haven't listened to that one yet, and they've been doing a lot of podcasts lately. It's really great to see the schools being promoted in that way.
Scott says blushing.
I might not focus on that aspect of his life so much if he'd been more complimentary to Rand. I think that's going back to earlier part of the conversation. All right, we'll catch up on these as we go.
Yeah.
But yeah, as I mentioned, that compliments are a lifeline. Think of Rourke and Mallory. Compliments are a way to identify kindred spirits, people who share not just our values, but enough of our psychology that they become a mirror to us.
Yes.
Compliments are a way of giving recognition, and you need to recognize when other people produce, create, and share values. This is trade. This is justice. Showing up matters. Incidentally, last time we talked about this, we also talked about gratuities. And we got into some practical issues. There are certain young people, especially, well, there's some old misers too, but mostly young people, who kind of bristle at the idea of tipping. And not just in restaurants, there are other contexts in which you tip drivers, you tip baggage handlers. There are all sorts of occasions now when tipping is just part of what happens. And my only advice, because I remember being young and poor and feeling the same way, was that you want to budget. You want to budget for that. And then I realized, that kind of applies across the board. You need to budget for benevolence. We had an episode on benevolence, and I don't mean benevolence in the sense of altruism, just in the sense of justice. We need to budget time to spend on people who are of value. Some of us need to budget extrovert points, People like me who are super shy and are not outgoing and are not likely to go to somebody and say, I really appreciated what you did, or I really admired what you did. I really respect what you do. I really wish this part of me could be more like that part of you. We need to budget dollars. We need to budget dollars for gifts, for tipping, for the kind of generosity that lets us feel self-confident in how we express our values. And you do that ahead of time. It's one of the mistakes I used to make, is that I didn't budget ahead of time. And so I would be playing catch up. You want to feel that degree of self-control that says, I can afford $10 or 10 minutes to spend on this person who deserves to be praised, or who deserves to be tipped, or who deserves a gift, or who I, just in the name of my values, want to compliment or reward in some way.
Mm-hmm.
That's power. That's efficacy. That's agency. That's control. That's good stuff.
Yeah, one way that you can really get the juice out of your values is if you see somebody else experiencing or appreciating the same value that you have, and you compliment them for that, or you say something about it, and that psychological visibility, or that appreciation is really worth so much. And it's really amazing that we're all human beings. We have a really excellent philosophy, and we have really excellent guidance, and we have this power of reason, and we can really just relish life so much more. And it's just fantastic.
Yes. I'm sorry, yeah. I'm just loving that Kelsey Rose wrote, Mary Aline is a skilled benevolence budgeter, I think.
Yes.
Mary Aline's great. It's not just that Mary Aline is very generous.
Yes.
When she gets on a super chat with somebody whose idea she cares about. She's one of the great benefactresses of the Ayn Rand Center UK, but she does it judiciously, and you can tell when she really appreciates something.
That's right.
She's not just putting money out there because she thinks ARC UK needs money. She's actually saying something, and I love it.
I mean, I can absolutely count on Mary Aline to be completely unpretentious and genuine, and congruous with her thoughts and actions. And I know this because she's actually a participant on my Couch to Standing workout on Facebook, and I love talking with her. So yay, yes. Mary Aline.
Yes, so she is skilled at budgeting for such thing, but very justly, very judiciously. She also writes, I tipped 30 to 40% because so many service industry people were out of work during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. It's funny because for the longest time I was a 15% tipper. And at some point over the last 10, 15 years, 20% just became normal.
Yeah.
And I felt myself resisting it. Like, I'll give 20% for outstanding service, but that wasn't to a lot of people, that was the minimum. But just like Mary Aline, over the last year, I have been tipping irrationally. No, not irrationally. I say that just to make the point. It's been a little over the top. In fact, it's funny. We left a tip at a place we didn't even eat because we didn't want them to go out of business. And well, anyway, I understand exactly what Mary Aline's talking about, and she's just right. She also put another $3 in the pot there. Very nice. And Gene Walters says, thank you. I've never heard compliments explained this way. I love it. Well, thank you. We never have either, and that's why we thought it needed saying.
Yes.
Yeah, on our other podcast, 5 Minutes with Robert Nacer, we get into some really quirky issues. And when Amy said, and I have to give Amy the credit, Amy said, I want to do an episode on compliments. Mm-hmm. It was really out of the blue for me. And if you look through the show notes on the episode, most of the notes were hers initially. For today, I added a bunch on. But
yeah, and you did a fantastic job. And by the way, isn't Robert a great reader when he reads The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged? Oh, I just find you so compelling. Your voice is amazing.
I really appreciate that.
And your intonation and your timing of exactly what you're stressing is just fantastic.
So the first time we talked about this way back when, we kind of gave Amy actually asked me to compliment her so she could give examples of how not to receive compliments. Remember, we mentioned we get into receiving compliments. So she had me say, Amy,
Yeah.
I think you look really nice today, and I think you're really well prepared, and I admire that.
I guess so. I guess. Are you sure? I mean, really? You really think so?
Now you see, when you react to a compliment that way, I mean, sure, it's awkward and it's uncomfortable and it doesn't really say what you want to say, but the other thing, and bear this in mind for your own selfish sake, is it's kind of a slap in the face to the person who's trying to pay you a compliment. It's a way of saying, what are you're wrong.
Yeah, you
I
must
I don't respect your judgment.
right.
Whatever you're trying to say, whatever compliment you're trying to give me, pshaw.
Yeah, basically I don't trust your judgment. You're giving me a compliment, I don't trust it. I don't trust the reality of it, and I don't trust you perceiving the reality of it.
Yes.
Yes.
So graciousness is also justice.
So do that again. Come on.
Amy, I really appreciate the way that you prepared for this, and that you chose this topic, and you even look great. You're obviously really ready for this.
I really appreciate what you say, Robert. Thank you so much. That really means a lot to me. And, coming from you, that means a lot, because I really know what your personal standards are in a lot of this. And just knowing that you can appreciate what I'm doing is just fantastic.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Well, it's well deserved.
See, there you go.
That's the other challenge, is finding a good closing for that, so that you don't keep going back and forth. Oh, well, you. Oh, well, you. Oh, well, you. Oh, well, you.
Or you could just say, oh, I thank you so much.
Thank you is good. I love the words thank you, and I especially like the words thank you with a period at the end of it.
I like this so much.
Thank you, but, and,
Yeah, you can just be confident in receiving a compliment.
Say what you want to say, and then put that full stop there.
Even if you're not entirely sure, you can think about it later. But in the meantime, reflect that compliment back.
Yes.
That's the polite way to do it.
Look, we got very good acting performance, says Stingy Student. It conveyed the emotion it was supposed to. I'm telling you, hand puppets are coming. If you want to see us doing acting, it's coming.
We're going to take over the Jim Henson universe.
That's right. Mm-hmm. There was a Jim Henson exhibit still there at the Henry Ford Museum.
Yes.
At the Henry Ford in Greenfield Village.
Outside of Detroit.
And one of the things they did, and who would have thought during COVID times, but they let you do a hand puppet on a video display showing on a television screen. And I tell you, that one moment of just, I'm addicted. I've got to order hand puppets now. We're going to do a whole episode of this show with hand puppets. You just wait.
It's going to happen, folks. It's coming. It's coming at you.
I probably should end that sentence with maybe or probably, because, virtue of honesty and stuff.
Now that Robert's saying it, I'm going to make sure I follow up.
That's right.
Yes.
And all of you out there, all the people watching live, all the people who will watch this later, you are now our accountability partners.
Yes.
Accountability buddies.
Accountability buddies. I love accountability buddies. As a matter of fact, Mary Aline is my accountability buddy, and I just love her for it. So
yes. I
hope you're not blushing, Mary Aline. I hope but I do know, actually.
You do not. You hope she's blushing.
Yeah, I know.
You hope she's like feeling all warm. So do I.
But I know that I know you accept compliments graciously. So, because you are very serious minded and you're very genuine. And it's there you are. This is.
Yeah. And she keeps us grounded. People like that keep us grounded. There are other types of people who try to keep us grounded, and that doesn't work. It's when your kindred spirits are willing to say, here's what I admire about you, but also here's what I think you should work on. That's when you've got some stuff. That's when you've got some value. So very, very much appreciated. And, we could fold part of this episode into a discussion of gratitude. And Jeff Bannister puts another $5 into the chat. Thank you for that. Very nice. I think this might be our biggest super chat episode. We could get, the way Yaron Brook has one of the people in the audience add up super chats. And it's like, we're up to $72, but we're trying to get to, we're not going to do that. But we really do appreciate you helping the ARC UK present these things. Especially the guys behind the scenes do so much stuff I mentioned once before, this is one of the funnest shows to do because I don't have to do anything other than, write up the notes for the show and present. But the technical stuff of setting up the fancy cameras and streaming and going to YouTube and the ODS.
Dylan, I know you're there, and I thank you very much for all of your efforts in helping us. Thank you.
Yeah, and if they're not giving you a cut, I'm telling you, a bit of the super chat ought to be yours. This should be buying you dinner tonight. Yeah. So anyway, thank you so much, everybody. As I say, couldn't resist doing a show on compliments. Amy brought it up, thought it was well worth talking about. Praise isn't just justice. Praise itself is a value. And the great thing about it is, where does that value come from? You don't have to spend money on it, although you can. You don't have to work hard on it. You don't have to go out there and get it from, it's created out of your own existing spiritual values. It's money for nothing, so to speak. To steal a quote from Dire Straits. You can pull praise up out of yourself, give it to somebody else. It's like gifts you can give people that you don't even have to pay for, other than your own ruthless value hierarchy.
Yeah. Yeah, and I should also add one other benefit of giving praise. Well, first of all, it keeps you grounded. For me, my background as a Nietzschean existentialist punk rocker as a teenager.
You had a tough past.
I had a very tough past. Despite my super happy exterior, I am very super happy now, but there was a time I wasn't. And so
you would never know this gal had been through stuff.
Yes. So basically, by pointing out why you like a person, or what they said or did, why you like that, why you appreciate that, you bolster, you strengthen your own values, and you recognize the good people around you. And what that does is that can protect you from thinking cynically. And assuming the worst of others and saying everybody in the world is just terrible because, X, they voted for X, or they, and then you get into politics and you get really cynical. And then you start thinking, oh no, I'm going to have to start prepping, I'm going to have my own chicken coop, and I'm going to have to get my own stockpile guns. Now that's fine.
There's a little dig in there on our prepper friends.
If you've done that, that's fine, but don't forego the absolute wonderful pleasure of praising other people, of looking for the best within others and praising them. That is a free spiritual value. And just like Leonard Peikoff on his Leonard Peikoff show, talking to a regular person and talking about his life and realizing that this person is virtuous and telling them that was just incredibly delightful. I'll never forget that moment.
It's funny, when Ayn Rand said that she would trust the judgment of truck drivers over modern philosophy professors, everybody took that as a dig on the modern philosophy professors, and it was. But it was also a real compliment to truck drivers, to any men out there earning their honest living. Alice's comments here: standards of value without judgments, compliments, affirmations are purposeless, just as such are floating apart from objective standards. Again, all of this needs to be grounded. It's why it has value, that it comes out of you, is that it is based on values. It's based on facts. It's based on reality. And that is just so. As we're getting closer to the top of the hour, I'm just going to...
I've got one more thing to say.
Oh, please.
Yes. So one other thing is, if you can, try to experiment in your own thinking about praising yourself.
Yes.
And trying to be objective about who you are and what you should be recognized for. Not as a way to say, I'm not being recognized by other people, but you need to know who you are and what your values are. You need to know yourself. It's one of the first things in philosophy there.
Yes.
And write down what it is you like about yourself, or what's praiseworthy about yourself, or imagine somebody else that you respect and admire praising you, or your best friend or your loved one praising you, or your husband or your wife praising you. And ask yourself, what would they say? What do they see? You know, actually, this is one of the things that I believe that Ayn Rand was talking to Marian Suarez about in Facets of Ayn Rand by Marian Suarez and Charles Suarez, which is a great book and everybody should read it. Ayn Rand was talking about how is it that other people see me? You know, I think that that's where she was talking about that. But that was a question on her mind.
Well, it wasn't so much on her mind, it was on Marianne's mind.
Ah.
And when Marianne brought it up, that's when Ayn Rand said, oh, and how do you think other people see me? It was because she had been thinking that way. So it's funny for two reasons. It was one, that Ayn Rand didn't usually think in that way of, well, what do people think of me? She was more like but I don't think of what you think of me. But at the same time, she wasn't disdainful of the idea.
No.
When it came up,
right,
she then became curious. Oh, well, what do people think of me?
Yes. Yes.
And I love that it wasn't something on her mind, but I also love that she didn't disdain the idea and say, oh, you should never think of what people think of you.
Right.
It simply doesn't come up.
Right.
But there's nothing wrong with being curious about it if it does. And that I love. Incidentally, since you mentioned that, I have to say, Atlas Spoke very generously says, I should remind people before we wrap up, we do also have a Sunday show, 5 Minutes with Robert Naser, every Sunday at 6 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be 3 o'clock Pacific or 2300 hours UK. And one of the things we do at the end of every 5 Minutes with Robert Naser, which, spoiler alert, it usually lasts longer than 5 minutes, but at the end of the show, which has a few times run over an hour, we have homework. And one of the homework assignments that I gave in the past was, ask yourself this question: what do people compliment me for or admire about me?
Mm.
And write it down. It's not as useful to just do it in your head. If you can, get a scratch paper, a Post-it note, a legal pad, do it on your computer if you like, write it down. What would people, or what do people compliment me for? And then write down this second question. What would I like people to recognize me for or compliment me for?
Yeah, it's a good way to say it.
Think about the alignment between the answers you gave yourself, and then ask yourself, how would I ask for that? Or how would I make that happen? So yes, thank you for mentioning the 5 Minute Show. Thank you to Atlas Spoke for that. Read his comments in the chat. He's got a lot of good insights here. But yes, that is homework we've given, and that may be valuable for you. That's not so much from the philosophy community as the life coaching community, but
well, from the philosophy community, I'd say be objective about yourself.
Be objective about yourself.
And other people that you care about.
And there doesn't need to be a conflict between those two. So to the extent you can, integrate them. Find your people and be with them. Of course, being here online is a good way to start with that. So thank you. Thank you, everybody, so much for being here. You guys are great. You've stuck with us through this. We've gone almost an hour. Very much appreciated. It's a compliment to you that you find these kinds of conversations about actually applying abstract ideas to your life, that you find them valuable enough to listen in, or fun enough to listen in, or interesting enough to listen in. Hopefully a little bit of all of the above. Thank you so much for being here. If we was just sitting here talking to ourselves, we wouldn't bother to do it. But you are here. We appreciate it. Thank you so much for supporting the Ayn Rand Center UK. The super chats have been especially generous enough. Again, I think this will be the highest level of super chat we've seen in an episode. Don't let that stop you next week from trying even harder. But the money goes to the center, not to us, but they support us. We're on the channel. It's all integrated. It's all a benevolent confluence.
Yes, it is. It's exponential values.
So go out there and compliment somebody who deserves it. Next time you look in that mirror, give that person a big fat kiss. I mean a big compliment. Make that happen. Take your values seriously. Thank you so much for being here. And we will see you Sunday night at 6 and next Thursday right here, Life on Earth on the Ayn Rand Center.
And now on Clubhouse right after the
can't.
show.
I should have mentioned it. How am I not mentioning where we're going from here? You've been in the chat. Now you can be on the mic. Get on the mic. Don't do a mic drop, or you could break your phone. If you have Clubhouse, and I know you do, fire up your phone, fire up the app. We're going to join you there. Come and talk to us.
Yes.
Come and chat.
Come and
We'll
chat.
see you on Clubhouse. Thank you so much. Everybody have an outstanding evening. We'll talk to you in a moment.